you're gonna lose it all!
What's good, everybody out there on YouTube? This is your man Shadicstick, dropping some hot Faraga on this mic, and today we're going to be talking about Dragon Ball FighterZ. I'm going to be reviewing it. This is called a Shadic review mini. Basically, this is kind of unscripted, but I have notes here and there, so I can go through and give you still an accurate review, but these will have less editing, etc., as, you know, other reviews. But let's begin. Dragon Ball FighterZ is honestly an amazing game, but it's also one that falls short of actually being amazing. What is there, you know, is something that would be an amazing game, but what is holding it back from being amazing is really a detriment to the game itself. But let's first off talk about the gameplay. The gameplay is really solid. It feels like Marvel and whatever Dragon Ball games in the past have existed just basically had a baby. And that's more so for the better. The only issues I have really in the gameplay lies in not really being able to get out of combos, the way Sparkling Burst works. Sometimes it can call for these massive comebacks, other times it just feels useless, because while it also acts as the burst, it kind of works like X Factor and, you know, Marvel 3. It doesn't feel like it was fully thought out. On top of that, the autocorrection in the game is just really wonky sometimes. Sometimes characters will stay turned around completely for the longest time. Sometimes they'll turn back around when, you know, things have been switched. There are minor things that really hold back the rest of the gameplay. On top of that, you have basically your supports getting hit no matter where they are on the screen because you get hit, and that causes them to back out, which is something that I think ties into that little burst system. You're also not able to use any other buttons when you're blocking. When you're blocking, you basically essentially have to sit there and wait until someone drops their combo. You want to use an assist, you can't do that. You want to change characters, you have to drop your block in order to do that. It's really one of those things where I feel like, again, it wasn't really thought out completely well, or they kind of thought it would help newer players into the fighting game genre, because a lot of people who playing this haven't really played fighting games all that much besides other Dragon Ball games in the past. Outside of that, it's really solid. A lot of mechanics I like Super Dash, work really well. They're easy to punish, but it's also easy to use to follow up combos with. Dragon Rush is a 50-50 for me. I would have rather had traditional grabs in the game, but for what it works, you know, relatively well for what it is. Relatively easy combo strings work well, but, you know, harder stuff requires actual skill, so it lets other players who, again, haven't played fighting games really get a taste for what being at the top can be like. But outside of that, it's for the most part solid. The detriments hold it back from being extremely amazing and just making it good. Now let's talk about the graphics. The graphics are something that you have to talk about in this game. It's beautiful and it looks like an anime. Arc System Works did a great job following up what they did with the Guilty Gear series on the modern day platforms, and have really created an experience that I can only call anime-like. This is truly one of the few games that gets as close to its anime brother as, you know, it does. The only other games that get this close are the Naruto Storm, and even those don't get this close. Many of the moves are extremely flashy and show off what the characters can do, and doesn't make any other character feel less flashy than another. Nappa and Ginyu feel just as flashy as Goku Black and Super Saiyan Blue Goku. Every character was treated with the same amount of care, and if not some more care, such as the Ginyu and his Ginyu Force that backs him up during the gameplay. A lot of attention to detail was added to this game, and it has to be really appreciated, especially since the game runs at 60 frames per second, but many of the animations were cut down to be 12 frames per second, 7 frames per second, just to emulate the anime aesthetic. Again, something you really have to appreciate. Many of the gameplay mechanics actually kind of work hand in hand with the graphics to make something that feels like you're actually in a fight in Dragon Ball, such as when two Dragon Rushes collide or two moves collide. It feels like a Dragon Ball moment. It's legitimately like if you play Smash, a DBZ, where you're just hitting and the moves are colliding, and it's really something that you have to experience. It's really cool if you keep, especially when you're playing mirror matches in this game. It's something that, you know, you gotta be the first person to come up with that mix-up to really take advantage of it. On top of this, the roster of characters is actually really well thought out. They represent some of the more minor characters, even though they were mainstays in the past, like Yamcha, Tien, and Krillin. They feel just as much as part of the cast as, say, for instance, Goku, Vegeta, Cell, Frieza. They feel just as much as part of the cast of the game's characters as those characters do. Again, something that I was worried about coming into this game, but that was well executed. Now let's talk about the feature set and the gameplay modes. Let's talk about the offline mode, since there really isn't much to say about them, except for maybe story mode, which is one of those really mixed bags that really hurts me as a gameplay, and it's actually, I feel like, an insult just to gamers in general. The arcade mode is actually well executed. The only issue I have with it is I wish there were more arcade modes to go through. You have a few to select from, and you know, 2 of them actually unlock Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta if you don't have them, you know, when you get the game. But the game escalates in difficulty with arcade mode. It feels like a true arcade mode. It feels like something that I could keep going back and playing and felt like I was rewarded. The training mode is, you know, the training mode in every fighting game is well executed, just as in many fighting games. So that's really not much I can say there. You have your trials, you have your basic training. It allows you to see your inputs. That's really all there is to that. Now, story mode is where things get really rough. The story mode, in terms of its actual story and the interactions between characters, on top of that, the dialogue and the voice acting are all actually handled relatively well, and it doesn't feel like there's any cut corners when it comes to that aspect of the game. Even the feature sets in the story mode are pretty cool, like you being able to level up your characters, changing out your characters, having to use items to make one character stronger than another. It feels relatively well thought out in that aspect. But when it comes to the actual gameplay, that's where things get bumpy. All of the AI basically do little to nothing to go out of their way to defeat you. In many cases, they just sit there and walk back and forth on the screen doing nothing. It's really an insult to the person playing's intelligence, and I think they did that mostly to mitigate anybody who hasn't played not video games, but fighting games, to feel like they can't progress in the story mode. And what they wound up doing was just making it really stupid. Legitimately, it is the most brain dead thing in this game, and that's really sad considering I was really looking forward to the story mode. The interactions and stuff are amazing, but they weren't enough to keep me wanting to play the story mode, because it was boring because of how bad the gameplay was, or how boring and simple it was, at least. And now let's talk about online. Online has different modes. You have your basic ranked, casual, and casual matches. Then on top of that, you have this thing called arena match, which never works in the lobbies. And then you have ring match. With ring match, you have 3v3s, which you can take 3 people per team, and you can fight it out like it's one person playing on one big team. It's really cool, and it's a really great mechanic that I'd like to see more tag games implement in the future. The big issue is actually getting matches in this game. Ring match does not work. Arena match does not work. Half the time when you're trying to get in a ring match, even after this patch that they released at the end of the month, it just simply doesn't work half the time. You get a no rooms found error, then you have to restart your entire game, whether that's quitting to title or restarting it via your system. It's honestly ridiculous, and for a $60 game, this should not be happening. You would be like, oh, that doesn't sound too bad, it'll take a few seconds. Well, it doesn't take a few seconds. It takes like a few minutes to restart your entire game and get back to trying to play with your friends in that ring match. Let me explain this process. So when the game starts up, it starts up and then has this little, region acquired stuff, blah, blah, blah. And the game starts off and you go online. And if you're on Xbox One, you actually have to sign in, which makes this even more tedious. Then the game starts up with this intro cutscene, and then there's another start screen, and then the game goes through this entire like 5 to 1.5 minute process of trying to tell what region you're in, then putting you into an auto lobby. And then once you get into that auto lobby, that you cannot change if you're automatically placed in the lobby or not, by the way. The game doesn't allow you to select it until you're actually automatically put into a lobby. Then you gotta leave that lobby and then go back all the way to the title screen, press start, blah blah blah, get to this point where they're like, oh, these are the regions, you gotta select your region, and then you select a sub-region, and then you select your lobby, hopefully hoping that it's not full because there's a 64 player limit to each lobby. And then you get into the lobby, try to find your friends and start the ring match because you have this little actual lobby that you move around, which I thought was a cool concept, but they should have really had an invite system to mitigate this issue. And you basically have to hope that you can get into your friend's lobby. This is honestly one of the most atrocious online games I've seen, especially at launch. Half the time when you're trying to get on a ranked or casual match, it takes forever to find an opponent. It's really tedious and annoying. The gameplay is amazing, but there are many times where I find myself just turning off the game because it takes too long to get into matches and I get bored waiting. Honestly, this is the game's greatest downfall, and because it was this biggest focus, it winds up making the game feel really lackluster in some aspects. That's really all I have to say about Dragon Ball FighterZ. Beneath all of the detriments is a really amazing game, but because it has this big online detriment, it really hinders any kind of fun you can have, and the story mode's just really half-baked. I'd like you guys to tell me how you feel about Dragon Ball FighterZ. Do you love the game? Do you hate it? Do you feel like it's the best Dragon Ball game we've ever gotten? The best fighting game ever? Tell me. This is me, your man, Shadicstick. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Share this video out with your friends, and we're out of here. Peace. Kiss, kiss. Donation links are down below.